The crowd was deeply moved as they gazed at Ronald, their respect for him deepening. In one moment, he appeared kind and benevolent. But in the next moment, he turned into a fierce and intimidating figure. His dignity as the Alliance leader and the strongest fighter in Balerno revealed itself completely at this moment. "Ronald, you will pay for what you have done. Today is the day you die." Dustin took a step forward. As the ground cracked beneath him, he exuded an equally formidable invisible energy, challenging Ronald's authority. Both of them had strong energy fields. The fields collided in the air, forming a semi-transparent barrier, which served as a divider. The arena was split into two. On the left was Dustin's domain, while the right belonged to Ronald. They had yet to engage in physical combat. Even so, a subtle power struggle had already taken place. "Dustin, I must admit, you are strong indeed. I doubt there is another martial artist as talented as you in Balerno, perhaps even on this entire planet." Ronald advanced toward Dustin. His energy field intensified like a bulldozer bearing down on Dustin's space. Had it been another 10 years, no, another 5 years, you would have been qualified to challenge me. But you're just too young right now. Rumbling sounds echoed throughout the arena. As Ronald advanced, the semi-transparent barrier began shifting forward. As it pressed against Dustin's field, it emitted explosive noises. While Dustin remained motionless, his energy field was steadily contracting. At first glance, it was clear that Ronald had the upper hand. The battle hasn't even started, and is already lost in energy fields. Can this fight continue at all? He shouldn't have gone with it when he lacks the skills. Did he think a duel with the Alliance leader would be easy? Young people are too arrogant. Why sign the waiver? He just cut off his only means of survival. Serves him right even if he dies. That's what he gets for overestimating himself. The crowd broke into a discussion as they watched Dustin being pushed back relentlessly. Some sympathized with him, some pitied him, some were worried, and some were disdainful. There were even those who were reveling in his misfortune. In their eyes, Dustin's defeat seemed inevitable. The only question was, how long could he hold on? "Sir Bolts, why don't you guess how many moves Dustin can withstand against Sir Reed's?" Quincy asked out of the blue. "Unless there's an unexpected twist, I'd say 10, Woody replied impassively. There were differences in strength even among grandmasters. And the gaps between each minor level were challenging to bridge. "Sir Bolts, it seems like you have overestimated this young man." Theodore chuckled and shook his head. "If I'm not mistaken, after Sir Reed's recent seclusion, his skills have ascended to another level. So he should only need 3 moves to deal with Dustin." "Oh, is that so?" Woody raised an eyebrow, somewhat surprised. Ronald had already attained the status of a Grandmaster several years ago. If he had made further progress, he was on the verge of becoming an ultimate Grandmaster. If that were the case, the Martial Arts Union would have to re-evaluate his value. "Dustin, you should never have challenged me. I already offered you a chance back in the Black Forest. But it seems like you're determined to dig a grave for yourself. No one will be coming to your rescue today." Ronald continued to advance. His terrifying presence intensified as it surged forth like a tsunami. Under the intense pressure, Dustin's energy field began to show visible signs of strain. It looked like a massive sheet of glass on the verge of shattering. The cracks expanded rapidly and multiplied like a sprawling spider's web. The celestial blade wrapped in cloth behind Dustin vibrated intensely. It produced a faint resonance. The blade seemed eager to join the battle. Dustin reached out and gently patted the sheathed blade, calming its restlessness. It wasn't time yet. "Dustin, it's time to die." After he pushed Dustin back to the limit, Ronald took a swift step forward. With a high-pitched explosion, Dustin's energy field shattered instantly. It broke apart into pieces. "Go to hell." Ronald seized the opportunity with all his might. He took another step and propelled himself forward, turning into a streak of white light. In his wake, the air was cleaved, emitting a shrill howl. Even the solid platform of the arena was etched with deep grooves. The astonishing speed and force resembled a destructive missile. It was capable of eliminating everything in its path. Bring it on. Dustin's gaze hardened. Refusing to show any weakness, he also turned into a stream of light and charged headlong at Ronald. At that moment, neither side showed signs of retreating. It left only an inevitable head-on collision. After a brief sprint, the two human projectiles ultimately collided with each other with tremendous force. A loud roar reverberated, and the earth shook beneath them. The entire arena began to shake, and the ground was blown apart. It left behind a huge crater with cracks that splintered outward around the edges. From the point of impact, a surging wave of energy swept outward in all directions. Wherever it passed, debris filled the air, and dust clouded the scene. The audience instinctively covered their ears and hunched forward. They channeled their internal energy to resist the howling wind that rushed toward them. Even when they had prepared themselves, the assault of the violent gusts still left them with hair standing on end. Their entire bodies trembled, causing them to struggle to maintain their footing. The moment Dustin and Ronald collided, deep rifts brutally tore the circular arena apart. Both of them were also sent hurtling away. Dustin was pushed back several feet by the impact, creating deep grooves into the ground. In stark contrast, Ronald ascended and descended gracefully. He seemed unaffected by the collision. The glaring difference in their strengths was displayed for all to witness. When the dust settled, the audience of martial artists felt a cold shiver run down their backs. They were terrified. The aftermath of that previous collision was terrifying. Had they not been prepared and failed to dodge, they would have been seriously injured. Even with their precautions, the destructive force left them with a lingering unease. Not bad. You've improved since our encounter in the Black Forest, Ronald said as he placed one hand behind his back. With a faint smile playing on his lips, he looked convinced of his victory. Unfortunately, you're still going to die today. Ronald, don't hold back and just bring it on. Otherwise, you won't have another chance. Dustin straightened his posture, his gaze as cold as ever. The attack earlier had allowed Dustin to see through Ronald's limits. As expected, it appeared as if Ronald was on the verge of turning into an ultimate grandmaster. Fortunately, due to time constraints, he hadn't fully broken through yet. Otherwise, it would have been much harder to deal with him. You really won't learn your lesson till you die. Ronald narrowed his eyes slightly. As his energy surged once more, his clothes billowed and rustled. Didn't you wish to witness my true strength? Very well, I'll make sure you die with no regret. With that, his body trembled. He let out a sudden burst of golden light, creating a protective aura around his body. The golden radiance draped over him like a suit of armor. It intensified his already formidable presence. He appeared like a god descending among mortals. Ronald exuded an air of contempt and superiority upon all beings. And the martial artists found it hard to breathe as the pressure grew stronger. Many of them were unable to withstand the weight of the atmosphere. They were forced to retreat to a safer distance to watch the battle. Very good. Sir Reeds is finally showing his true power. A sinister smile played on Theodore's lips as he watched the unfolding scene. I've long heard of Sir Reed's formidable Infinity Aura technique. I finally have the opportunity to witness it for myself today. Woody was suddenly in high spirits. Ha ha ha. To die under Sir Reeds's ultimate technique, this brat can take pride in his demise. Quincy's gaze turned icy. For Sir Reeds to employ his Infinity Aura technique, Dustin is in real danger now. Emery frowned, his expression solemn. The Infinity Aura technique was a legendary martial arts technique. Those who practiced it were nearly invincible, as both weapons and the elements couldn't harm them.